Let me begin this video by saying this Tom Brady to the 49ers deal is a long shot. I think we all realize that, but it's technically possible and it's also a fun idea to explore, so we're gonna go ahead and talk about how it would all go down. Then at the end, we'll discuss the real chances of it actually happening. First off, everything begins with three parties needing to sign off on such a deal: Brady, the Niners, and the Bucs. As you've probably heard or seen, Brady never actually used the word retire in his Instagram post. Then he proceeded to say on his podcast that he was happy with his decision to stop playing, but he also said never say never when he was asked about playing next year. He even said he wasn't sure how he would feel 6 months from now. Others who know Brady well, like Julian Edelman, have said they wouldn't be surprised by a Brady comeback. So even though the chances of a return are slim, it seems the door was left open just a crack. And that crack could be widened by the team Brady has always wanted to play for. The team that would have been at the top of his list in 2020 before he ended up signing with the Bucs. Of course, that team is his childhood favorite San Francisco 49ers. He would play in a stadium close to where he grew up and close to where his parents live. The Niners will also have a better roster next year than the Bucs, so with Brady's addiction to winning, that one certainly helps. On the 49ers side of things, GM John Lynch said in 2020, "When you're talking Tom Brady, of course you're going to have some internal discussions." Lynch has also said they're going to be completely upfront and honest with Jimmy Garoppolo as things unfold this offseason. Which brings me to the one thing that probably isn't getting talked about enough: Tom Brady's agent, Don Yee, who was also the agent of Jimmy Garoppolo. Which means Don Yee is going to be completely filled in on the 49ers quarterback situation. And if Brady set his heart on playing for his childhood team, then he could quickly be filled in on everything. And boom, that's how fast it could go down. You could even chalk up a scenario where the Bucs receive Garoppolo and the 49ers go all in for 1 year with Brady before Trey Lance then takes over. That would be a dream scenario for Don Yee to satisfy both of his clients. Garoppolo would be happy going down to Tampa and throwing to Mike Evans in some good weather. The Niners are high on Lance, but let's be honest, when you have the roster like they do, that's the time to go for broke. Getting Brady could be the final piece to their championship puzzle, just like Brady did for the Bucs, and like Stafford, although maybe to a lesser extent, did for the Rams. I only say that because the Rams had previously been to a Super Bowl a few years earlier, and I don't think they win this year without also trading for Von Miller. Anyway, Lance can look great in practice and in limited playing time on Sundays, but you never know what you're gonna get in a bigger sample size, and more importantly, when the season is on the line in the playoffs. Because that's the main reason they're getting rid of Garoppolo in the first place. They can win 12 games a year with Jimmy G, but he can't quite take them to the promised land. And besides, the plan can still be for Lance to be the future, but there are very few quarterbacks in the league you should be willing to change plans for at a moment's notice, and obviously Tom Brady has proven he is exactly that, especially with the Niners having that opportunity 2 years ago and not taking it. I should also mention the effect Brady would have on the Niners locker room. We already saw what it did for the Bucs, but Deebo Samuel was recently asked about Brady joining the team, and he started off by saying, "That would be amazing," before catching himself with respect to Garoppolo and Lance and saying that would be crazy. Now the 49ers could want Brady and Brady could want the Niners, but he's under contract for the 2022 season with the Bucs. So Bucs GM Jason Light would have to agree to a trade. You may be thinking, why in the world would the Bucs ever let go of Tom Brady, especially after he put together an MVP caliber season? There's a couple things to consider. First off, the Bucs are currently planning a season without Brady. They're going to fill their cap with what they need. If Brady were to unretire, then they would suddenly owe him the money he's due. It's similar to the Patriots planning their 2020 offseason without Gronk. Then Gronk unretiring and holding all the cards as he was due $10 million and saying he would only play for the Bucs. So the Patriots deal him for a 4th-round pick to the only possible trade partner. In the end, it slightly helped the Patriots as well because they didn't have Gronk that offseason to begin with, but they ended up with a 4th-round pick out of thin air. On top of that, I think the Bucs are going to be willing to work with Brady after all he did for the franchise. And if they get Garoppolo in return, then at least they'd have a starting NFL quarterback. Because Kyle Trask is obviously far less proven than even Trey Lance when it comes to playing in the NFL. Still, as much as the Bucs would work with Brady, I'm sure they'd be hesitant to send him to an in-conference contender. So the Niners would have to make sure they sweeten the deal enough for the Bucs to swallow that pill. It would also be hilarious with Garoppolo once being the heir to Brady in New England, to then be replaced in San Francisco by Brady. Now, with all this being said, the main reason Brady announced his retirement without saying retirement was because of his family. I've made multiple videos in the past where I've explained the Giselle dynamic and how she's been begging him to retire for years, sometimes even before the family left the stadium after Super Bowl wins. And Brady himself has also said how his life has revolved entirely around football, and now it's time for it to revolve around family. NBC reporter Michael Hawley, who once wrote an entire book on Brady and Belichick, said he thinks if Brady wants to stay married, he'll stay retired. He thinks the family consequences have become that serious. And even if Brady were to convince his wife of one more year, then you'd think the Bucs or maybe the Dolphins would be the only possible teams for him because he'd still be close to where they're building a house and raising their family. Plus, even when you don't consider the family side of things, Brady will apparently keep himself busy with his TB12 and Brady brands. And it was recently reported that he's starring in a comedy film about a group of friends who take a life-changing trip to Super Bowl 51. Weird turn of events. But I guess when he's not playing football, his life is still about football. Although if he does somehow return, the movie isn't gonna do anything to prevent that. I mean, LeBron had a much bigger role and part in the Space Jam production, and he was able to do that in the middle of his career. All in all, the chances of this happening are honestly quite slim. There's multiple hurdles to get over, but a Tom Brady-led 49ers team would almost certainly be a Super Bowl favorite. So it's worth talking about at the very least. I just think the family dynamic is finally taking priority, and even if Brady came back to the NFL, a move to San Francisco would further complicate things for the family. So in the end, this dream will almost certainly remain a dream. But hey, like Brady said himself, never say never.